Edward R. Murrow is a school of excellence in various fields, from academics to television production to music to art, but it stands out most as a performing arts high school. For more than 20 years, Murrow has produced many Broadway-quality shows at far-off Broadway prices. After over 60 shows performed by some of the most talented kids, including Marissa Tomei, class of '82, Murrow Theater is still in top form. Yet another product of Murrow Theater is coming up this November. The comedy The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde is being performed in the Joseph Papp Theater and is directed by Rory Schwartz. Hello, welcome to Murrow's Show of Shows. I'm your host, Michael Feldman, and I'm also currently starring in the Papp Theater production of The Importance of Being Earnest, playing the role of Dr. Chasuble. Now I'm here with the director of The Importance of Being Earnest, Mr. Roy Schwartz. Thank you for being here. Can you give a short synopsis of The Importance of Being Earnest?
The plot of the play is actually very simple. It's about a man who was found in a handbag.
Can you give a little more?
It's actually the plot is not the important thing of Ernest. It's what we call a high comic satire, and it's a play that was Oscar Wilde's way to ridicule the society that he lived in, and also ridicule the style of theater that was popular in his era of the 1890s. It's a play that makes fun of conventions of the English upper class at that time, and through a very contrived plot line of two couples trying to get together, we are kind of ushered through a lot of the social conventions that were being satirized by Wilde.
What were some of the other Papp shows that you've directed?
I directed in the Papp over the last 14 years about 8 shows. I did the Diary of Anne Frank. I did Our Town. I did one of the few Shakespearean productions done at the school. I did production of Twelfth Night. I did 2 Moliere one-acts. Did 1 act by Ionesco, 1 act by Chekhov, and the effects of gamma rays I did, and our production of Fences I directed 2 years ago.
Is this show a little more of a challenge than any of the other shows that you've directed?
It's a challenge for the reasons I talked about before. And I remember someone recommending it to me a number of years ago, and I thought it was out of the question because the language was so sophisticated, and I dismissed it. And then it was recommended to me last spring, and after coming off of My Fair Lady, which is basically George Bernard Shaw, which has the same demands of a sophisticated language and British upper classes being depicted, after doing that show, I was so impressed by how well the students did that I thought that this was no longer a show that I needed to dismiss. And when I saw that there was interest on the parts of some of the students, I thought that it was something I'd be interested to do.
Well, thank you very much. So now we're going to take a look at some clips of the behind the scenes of The Importance of Being Earnest.
Establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne. I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brown.
They are eating muffins. You don't seem to notice us at all. Could you cough? But I haven't a cough. They're looking at us. What effrontery. They're approaching. Well, that's very forward of them. Let us preserve a dignified silence. Certainly. It's the only thing to do now.
Bum bum ba dum ba da, bum bum ba dum ba da, bum bum ba dum ba, bum bum ba dum ba, bum ba dum bum bum ba, bum ba dum bum bum ba, bum ba dum bum ba dum ba dum bum ba, bum ba bum ba bum ba dum ba dum bum ba.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect. A most distasteful one. But we will not be the first to speak. Certainly not. Mr. Wood, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him. I don't.
That does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Wirt, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the greatest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than happy with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean no.
True. I had forgotten. There are principles at stake and one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Or could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people.
Well, a life crowded with incident, I see. Though perhaps maybe somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time approaches for our departure. We have no time to lose.
Suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew's Algernon? Impossible. The christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
These gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, it is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Your uncle would be most displeased if he learned that this is the way in which you wasted your time and your money.
Am I to understand then that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that is the way things are now. It'd be much practical value to either of those, Dr. Charles.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. However, as your present mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I'll return to the church at once. Indeed, I've just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
A Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her.
Hi, we're back with Joe Salgo of The Importance of Being Earnest. Joe, could you please give your name and a short description of your character?
Well, I play John Worthing, Justice of the Peace, and he's a character that's always out to play a game with his friend Algernon. You know, he's always out to get the one up in a situation, and it's very funny. I mean, it's really hard to explain a character because he's as Mr. Schwartz said before, you know, high comedy. He's not really like a real person. So pretty much he's in love with Gwendolyn and will do anything to you know, get her to be in love with him. And, you know, it turns out that it's very confusing, the play, because it starts out that people think his name is Ernest, but we find out that his name is Jack, and that leads to troubles, and, you know, that's it.
You don't want to give away the end.
Yeah.
I know this is your third PAP show. Does this prove to be any more of a challenge than your other PAP shows?
Well, I've always liked comedy, and I think comedy is harder to do than drama, because there's a certain type of timing involved in comedy, and it's also much harder to make people laugh than it is to make people cry, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, your first show in the PAP Theater was Life with Father.
Yes.
And that was also a comedy. So how does those two shows, you think, compare in the comedic aspect?
Well, I had a very small part in Life with Father. You know, I'm not complaining, but my part was not necessarily a comedic role. It was pretty much a walk-on. And but Life with Father is a very funny play, but this play I think is more of a classic because, I mean, it was written in the 1890s, and here we are 100 years later, it's still funny. And I think it will always be funny. And there's not a moment in the play where it's not enjoyable to watch or to listen to.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're here with Greg Samothrakis. Greg, could you give the name of your character and a short description?
Sure. I play a character named Algernon Moncrief, and him and his friend Jack, played by Joseph Salgo, they're kind of the men about town, and they're aristocrats, and they live pretty much only for their own pleasure, and at least Algernon, more specifically than Jack, leads a very frivolous lifestyle. He never really looks at any troubles that befall him as anything more than something to amuse him. He's very easily amused by anything that goes on around him, even the potential misery of the people around him. Jack tends to be more serious than Algernon, and Algernon can drive him up a wall by being very lighthearted. He's got a very devil-may-care attitude.
And the relationship between you and Joe off the stage, how does that compare with the relationship between you two on the stage?
Joe's a great guy. Joe Salgo's a great guy, and I think it's pretty similar, except we don't really try to outdo each other. We're very friendly.
Sometimes we do.
Sometimes on certain topics, but for the most part, yeah, we can, I guess, bicker sometimes, just like all in jest, though. It's all in good fun.
You were in Our Town. That was your first PAP show. And this is maybe your last PAP show. How does your feelings from back then compare with your feelings now?
Well, Our Town wasn't only my first PAP show. It was the first show I did in Murrow altogether. And, I mean, that still remains to be one of the best experiences I've ever had working in the Players Circle, because, I mean, it was just the fact that I felt so ushered in. I was the only freshman in that show, and I just felt so ushered into this wonderful world of Murrow theater. I think it was a great experience being in that show for a number of different reasons. Just, I mean, in terms of comparing to this, it's obviously an extremely different show. Type of show, everything about it is very different. I really feel like I've learned a lot in my years here in terms of acting. I feel that it's going to show up in the performances. I was looking at the video of Our Town the other day, and I feel like such a different person, not in terms of like appearance or whatever, just in terms of acting and just the way I was on stage. And I think that's going to be good.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we're here with Sari Schwartz, and could you give a name of your character and a description?
I play Gwendolyn Fairfax, and she is the daughter of Lady Bracknell, who they are the epitome of snobby aristocrats. I mean, she is upper class. Her whole life she's been, pampered in every way. And, the only way she knows is, the way that, where everything's proper. Everything is how she looks, her appearance to other people. And as far as Jack, she's in love with Jack too, but when her mother tells her she can't marry Jack because this isn't the person that she picked out, it's almost like she accepts it because she was taught to, accept whatever she was told. She's very, I don't know, she just takes whatever's given to her without much of a fight. But everything she does is just extremely proper. There's a way to do everything, which is a lot of the characters in the show. And it's the way that Wilde makes a satire of the upper class English.
I know this is your first PAP show, but you've been in many other shows. How does the atmosphere with this show compare to all the other shows?
It's completely different. I mean, I've done 6 musicals, And the Pap Show, it's much, I mean, musicals, something about musicals is that it always has to be bigger than life. I mean, there's acting involved. I mean, I was in a chorus line, there was a lot of acting involved, but it's just different than when you're up close in the audience face practically. I mean, it's a completely different atmosphere. And in terms of acting, I mean, I think I've had many challenges on the musical stage, but it's definitely something new, and it's definitely a challenge, because it definitely is. Isn't it?
All right, thank you very much. And we're here with Leah Robertson. Can you give the name of your character and a description, please?
Yes, I play Cecily Cardew, and she's the youngest character in the play. She's age 18. Motherless and fatherless, she's raised by Joe Salgo's character, Mr. John Worthing, and Lily Posner's character, Miss Prism. She's got all of the innocence and the sweetness in the play, I think, and yet she still has, her harsh upper class, very proper ways about her, but she's engaged to Algernon, Greg's character, and she's not very, I mean, she's the romantic girl, I think, as innocent as I said, and she doesn't pay much attention to her studies. That's about it.
And this is also your first Pap show,
Yes.
but you've been in many other shows also,
Yes.
so same question.
Yes, I've been in 4 other musicals. Exactly, I have to agree with everything with what Sari said, because it is completely different. I mean, not just the distance between you and the audience, but it's more on a realistic level, even though it's not. I mean, it's a play, but it's a little bit more exciting in a way. I'm really enjoying this. It's an incredible experience, and I'm looking forward to putting it on.
And what made you interested in trying out for The Importance of Being Earnest?
The play itself, I appreciate the language and the literature that Oscar Wilde put down on paper. I mean, it's an incredible classic, timeless comedy, which you can see, and you'll be able to see. Put it on.
Well, very good. We're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to look at the rest of the cast from The Importance of Being Earnest and a close look at the costuming. Stay with us. Edward R. Murrow High School, in association with the Players Circle of Friends, is proud to present Oliver, based on Charles Dickens' classic Oliver Twist, directed and choreographed by Scott Martin. Tickets are on sale for Wednesday, December 17th through Saturday, December 20th in the Joseph Anzalone Theater. For reservations, call 718-998-5323. That number again is 718-998-5323. Hi, we're back with the rest of the cast from The Importance of Being Earnest. I'm your host, Michael Feldman. And with me, I have Amaris Harney. Amaris, can you give the name of your character and the description?
Sure. My name is Lady Bracknell, otherwise known as Aunt Augusta. I'm Algernon's aunt and Gwendolyn's mother. My character is very upper class, very pulled together, never quite angry, never quite upset, but can be quite cutting. She also, though, has a side that's quite humorous. You see her in her humoring of her nephew, and she has a good sense of humor, but at the same time she keeps everything in decorum, everything under control.
Well, I know this is a very big and demanding role. Do you find it a challenge compared to the other shows you've been in?
I do find it a challenge for many reasons, one of which is the constant dialect and constant pull-up. I'm a person who's very, relaxed and straightforward, but she's often very just pulled together and pulled down. I guess that's one reason why it's a complicated character, and the other is that you never want to slight her feelings. You want to always be able to convey what she's saying or what she's feeling. She's very complex, but I love playing her. I think it's an excellent stretching for me.
Well, that's nice. Thank you very much. And now I'm here with Lily Posner. Could you give the name of your character and a description?
I'm playing Letitia Prism, and she's the governess of the Worthing household. She looks after Cecily Cardew, make sure that she's raised properly, and her main goal is education. She loves education. So that's pretty much her.
And this is your first PAP show. How do you?
I've worked as a stage manager on You Can't Take It With You, but this is my first time playing a role in a PAP show.
But you've been in other shows.
Yeah.
In Murrow. How does this compare with the other shows you've been in Murrow? Is it more of a challenge? How's the end?
It's definitely more of a challenge, but the other shows, they had their other challenging parts, because I did 5 musicals before this, and I always played ensemble roles, and they were fun. They were dancey, singy type roles. This is much different.
Well, thank you very much. Now I'm here with Ben Roth. Could you give a name of your character and description?
I play Merriman. I'm the butler at the Worthing House. I'm your average, loyal kind of butler, but I kind of seem to have a way of always walking in at the wrong time, interrupting their little twisted conflicts going on. That's who I am.
How does this show compare with the shows you've done before? This is your first PAP show, I know.
Yeah, I just did one musical before. And I feel like it's definitely like you're working closer with everybody. So it's a totally different experience, and so you can tell you can work closer with the audience also during the performances. So it's very different.
Thank you very much. And now we're here with Rami Shamir. Rami, could you give name your character and description?
I play Lane. He's the manservant to Greg's character Algernon. And the main thing about Lane is that you have to watch out for the facial expressions there, because what he says isn't really what he means. Everything in that character is in the facial expressions, and it took me a while to realize that. And you can't over dramatize and you can't under dramatize, and that's why I think it's somewhat challenging.
What made you interested in trying out for the importance of being earnest?
I love the play. I've read the play many times before I tried it out, and I've seen the movie. And I just wanted to try out probably pretty much because of the play itself.
Thank you very much. And we're here with costuming, Maggie.
Yeah.
Say your name and what you do.
I'm Maggie Joyce, and I'm the costume designer of The Importance of Being Earnest. And what I do is I design the costumes. I mean, today I took the measurements of all the characters, because that's necessary. And some of the costumes we'll be making from scratch, but most of them we'll just be taking from our costume shop.
Now, I know costuming is very important in this show. It's all 19th century English.
Yes.
Is it challenging compared to other shows' costumes?
The PAPs are different. I mean, the PAPs are definitely different from the musicals, but with costuming, you have to be more precise with the detail. Because when you're on a stage, a larger stage, which we use for musicals, you don't see the little print, but you see that when you're in the PAP, so you can't have like a button missing or something. It's more important. And with this show, it does mean a lot, because they're an upper class. They're an upper class society where they dress much better, and you have to reflect their personality and other such things in the costume.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on in the costume shop.
And basically what we've done for this show is we're painting everything so that it looks realistic. So we've painted sky for one scene that's outdoors, and we've painted a whole bunch of library books, which are actually on the back of these flats, which I can show you. Right now what the students are doing is creating the effect of wallpaper. And we painted stripes, covering them with masking tape to keep the stripes exactly perfect. And now what they're doing is stenciling, using 2 different stencils to create the effect of a Victorian wallpaper, and after we'll add some gold to make it really rich looking. We'll have some fake wood on the bottom, and the idea is to give it the look of a luxurious, wealthy person's sort of sitting room. And we have the 4 panels going on here. Everybody's working on the same thing. And actually, Marcella, can you just pick it up so we can show the books on the back? These pieces will serve for 2 scenes. On the back, we have library books from when we are in the library scene. And whoops. Hold on. Okay. You got that? Okay. So these are for our library scene. Okay, thanks. And we're going to flip them during intermission, and it will become the drawing room. And that's what the students are working on here. Simultaneously, we have students working on costumes. This is the costume shop. It's a little bit messy right now. We're working again simultaneously on Oliver, which will be in December, and the importance of being earnest right now. The designer for the importance of being earnest teaches is in here, C-band, but we can show you what she's working on. This is going to be a butler's jacket, a regular jacket that we did some things to make it look like it's more in the period of the 1890s. And we have here the racks of costumes. Men's suits that we're working on, again, changing them and altering them to make them look more like they're in the 1890s as opposed to the 1970s.
Thank you all for being here today. It's a great experience. I hope everyone comes sees The Importance of Being Earnest, November 5th through 8th at the PAP Theater, located on the second floor of Edward R. Murrow. And goodbye.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Oh, good heavens, I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden if he chooses.
But you have just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I say it's perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, I wish you could let you a toe.
I can't possibly leave without having any dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. And nobody ever does, except vegetarians and people like that.
1230. Many thanks to all those who smiled for our cameras. In memory